Hi, and welcome to another episode of Nursing Your Way to Wealth, where a mental health nurse and an accountant talk about wealth creation, personal development, and financial independence in the UK to help you live the life you deserve.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back. Got an interesting podcast today in this incredibly hot weather, but going to kind of follow our usual structure. So we'll have like the return on heartbeats, and then the main body today is around. It's based off an article I read over the weekend through the Telegraph around the kind of six main regrets people have with their money, and that's from financial advisors. So it's their clients telling them this. So we're going to go through some of those, and then finish off with a reasonable or ridiculous, which is I think very relevant for the current weather. Yeah, without further ado, I say hi, Alex, and I think you've got a nice return on heartbeats this week.
I do, yeah. Thanks very much and welcome back. We've had a little bit of a hiatus. Both of us had like short, like a bit of a week off or so. Yeah, interesting in terms of regrets of finances. But first up, also, I haven't read the article that you mentioned either, so I've got no knowledge of it in advance.
Ah, yes,
But my return on heartbeats for this week. Do you remember the time I asked you about planting 80 onions in our garden?
I do.
So they've grown really well. And today has been one of the first days that we've been able to make a dinner that's 90 or 80 or 90% homegrown vegetables. So we had like just some pasta and vegetables and cheese. Like my wife's Italian, so she makes a lot of food like that. And we've managed to pull chard, one of the onions, rocket, and a courgette from the garden to cook that with. We've obviously had to buy the pasta and the cheese. We don't have any of those kind of making facilities, but it's just a really nice thing to be able to go grocery shopping in your garden and just take a pair of scissors or a little knife and just pull out vegetables, wash them, and cook them. So that's my return on heartbeats for this week. Mostly homegrown dinner.
That's really cool. I think that's what a lovely thing to be able to do. And was it nice? Did you taste a difference between, say, those and a supermarket or? 'Cause, I mean, you go to a farm shop, I think, don't you? So
So
I imagine you get quite good stuff. Yeah,
we do sometimes, yeah. But most of the vegetables I get is, to
yeah.
be honest, just from a supermarket or so. I think I can taste the difference in the onion. It's more kind of tangy sharpness, um, and the courgette's excellent. Like you just twist it off the plant, wash it, chop it. It's got such a much better flavour. The courgettes you get in supermarkets are normally massive and kind of overgrown for size,
Mm,
but actually they're way better if they're about half the size and almost a little bit thinner than a regular like cucumber. That's the sweet spot for like perfect courgette flavor.
that's good to know
So
because we eat quite a lot of courgettes I've bought in the supermarket, and they're the big fat ones. That
yeah, pick the smaller variety if you can.
yeah, good tip. Thank you.
Yeah, you'll get much more flavor out of it. Um, so yeah, we have been able to have to do a lot of watering and weeding and things, but to return on kind of the effort you put back in. There's also a hose pipe ban going on in Kent because of some water shortage issue because they keep building houses. But there's a wrinkle in the rules that you're allowed to water vegetables if you grow them at home. So all my other plants and grass is not looking good, but the vegetables at least are getting the water they need.
That is good news. I do. That's a that is a
Mm,
good wrinkle.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'll pass to you for the article. Six regrets.
Yeah, so I was reading it. I thought it was quite interesting, and some of them are probably obvious, and some of them maybe aren't. So I thought what I'd do is just quickly go through the six, and then we could and I think this will probably straddle a few episodes, just to for the interest of time. But I'll go through them, and then I thought we could just discuss them one by one. And I don't think these are in a particular order. So the context of this is the people at the Independent, the journalists interviewed financial advisors on what the biggest regrets of their clients were, and these were the main kind of the six that were pointed out. So number one was about giving too much money to their children too early, and rationale was kind of twofold. One is it actually it hampered people later in life because a lot of the retirement, what money that could have been used for retirement was used on the children. And also as well, it in some cases spoiled the children and maybe took away some of the motivation that the kids might have had to kind of go out and get jobs and things quicker. The second one was around delaying big spending and almost saving up big travel or big purchases for retirement when health probably wasn't as good as it could have been. It probably wasn't as good as it was kind of 10, 22 years earlier. The third one, another regret, was staying in the wrong job just for security, which I also thought was quite interesting and not. And I can kind of get why you would stay in a job when they're secure, especially as kind of the time of with AI and everything that's in, and you got a solid paycheck. But I think there is that balance of, are you motivated? Do you enjoy your job? And there's a bigger point of enjoying the ride rather than just saving up a certain amount of money to get somewhere. The fourth one was around being too cautious with investing and not starting investing early enough and having too much money in cash for too long. And I think we've talked a lot about that on the podcast, on the benefits and drawbacks of holding too much cash. And then the fifth one was around leaving inheritance tax planning too late. And this is a really common thing where there's a lot of psychological impacts on inheritance tax planning. I think it's very much about you're confronting your own mortality and looking at the end. But there's so many rules, and the benefits of inheritance tax planning and doing it early is a lot of the rules with regards to inheritance tax around gifting and things are time bound. And if you start gifting and things earlier, your inheritance tax bill can come down. So it just gives you that flex. But yeah, that was the fifth main regret of clients. And then the sixth one was around putting off writing a will. And I think that's similar to the will/inheritance tax. It's probably a combined kind of similar theme on that. So those were the six. And so I thought, for want of a better order, we start with the first one. But I guess before we dive in, did any of those surprise you, Alex, or were you? Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit, to be honest. For some reason, I didn't expect like the third one to be mentioned about kind of staying in the wrong job and the security, perhaps. So you can kind of see it, but I wonder if that's benefits of hindsight or perhaps wishing you did something else because the unknown could have been better. We only know what we know. We don't know the other side of the decision, I suppose. But there's a lot. Yeah, there is a lot here. When you first said there's six, I was like, we can rattle through those, no problem. 20 minutes, job done. But now you've now you've fleshed it out a bit. We might have to do something like 3 and 3, and we'll do 3 today, 3 next week, something like that.
Yeah.
But we'll just see how we go in terms of time. But in terms of gifting money, when you first talked about that, I thought you were going to say gifted money too late in life. But you actually said gifted too much money too early, and it's had the opposite effect.
Yes, I think when it's coming with children, yes, and I guess it's spoiling children. And I guess there was two elements to it. One was you almost give too much to the children and to the detriment of your own kind of comfortable retirement, which then means you need to work for longer and you have to delay other things that you might have wanted to do for yourself. But then the other was around if you've got the financial safety net of your parents from a very young age, it can and it does create potentially a lack of, I guess, motivation of the kid. So they're hanging around more, they're less independent, less quick to move on into adult life and stand on their own 2 feet. So I think that was the other arm of the argument for that.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because we've spoken before about kind of gifting money, and that both you and I would have benefited hugely when we were 20 to 25 in terms of getting something like that. But if you get it when you're 50, for example, 50, like that, I think the average age for inheritance I read the other day is like your 60s in the UK. You've kind of done 2/3 of your life at that point. You've been through the struggle off the ladder, on the housing ladder, etc. So, I mean, from my point of view, initially, and I appreciate I'm younger and I'm not in a position to be doing this for my own non-existent children, but I would always think that something earlier would benefit more than a little bit more later, kind of after you've had the decades to work.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's levels of it. And I think it's probably, helping a child onto the housing ladder, I think is really good and a really good thing to do. I think that if you were to be giving kids a lot of money, say from I don't know, I pick an age like 10, and they give it to 8 to 25 and supporting on not necessarily big purchases, but just general life stuff. So, if you want new clothes, new phone, new trainers, it's just a yes automatically. There's no work involved in like having to kind of trade for it and just almost spoiling them. I think because I have some friends who I went to school with who very much are like that, and I do think it's dented them in adult life. But I agree where there's like like parents helping their child learn to drive, I think is, really useful skill to have, really beneficial, makes sense. I think this was more just ongoing spoiling of children to then ending up to the detriment of your own. Effectively, it's like draining your own ISAs to pay for your kid's lifestyle rather than actually, I've got a nice, here's, I don't know, 40 grand, put some money towards a house and there's a nice gift. That's a useful gifting. I think it's the more
Yeah.
ongoing.
So I think there's a different kind of aspect of it. So firstly, I wouldn't want people to gift so much that their own lifestyle is um, less than it could be. So I'm not talking like
Yeah,
people who have loads and loads of millions of pounds, etc. But if you have, say, I don't know, £2,000 a month in retirement, and that's literally all you have in terms of income, and you give your child £1,200, leaving yourself short, that's a different story. If
yeah,
you have 10 grand a month and you give them 2,000, you're probably going to be okay. So I wouldn't want people to do it to their own detriment. But at the same time, I think there's something here about learning the value of money. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's no secret. My mum and dad have done well in life, and I benefited kind of from that, from like kind of childhood, etc. My mum and dad funded my driving lessons because you brought it up as
yeah,
a gift for my 17th, 18th birthday, which
yeah.
included a pass plus, like the motorway driving bit.
Oh,
And then
that's
when we came
handy.
to buy cars, I was like, Dad, so what are we going to do about getting me a car? And he was like, I don't know, what are you going to do about it? And I
Mm,
was like, oh, are you telling me I have to buy it myself? And he was like, yeah. And initially I was like, oh, I thought you were going to buy it for me. And then he's like, no, you need to learn the value of money. We can look at some garages together. You can work out how much you need. And I was already working at this point. I was doing like pot washing in pubs, and I was doing like waitering and stuff. Um, and from kind of 18, 19 onwards, I worked in a carpet kind of warehouse factory thing. So I had some money kind of set aside. And now I look back on it, it was a good lesson because it's not
yeah,
just handed to you. And he helped me kind of buy a car, make sure it was reliable, etc. And he helped me navigate the first year's insurance in terms of what the terms mean and where to get it. But I paid for both things wholly.
yeah. I'm
Um,
similar actually when it comes to driving. I had the same. So I was also I was gifted some driving lesson money to learn to drive, and then I actually had my mum's old car that she kept in the garage, but on the condition that similarly to you, I had to insure it myself, and I was then working to then pay for the insurance and fuel and upkeep and stuff.
yeah. Do you remember how much your insurance was?
I do. So my first year of insurance, it was just over £2,400.
Goodness.
Yes, it was basically £200
I
a
mean,
month that I had to pay. Yeah.
mine was like nine. I think mine was £1,100 or so. We clearly live in different postcodes, or had different value cars. I had an absolute kind of well,
Oh, mine was
yeah,
rubbish.
same.
A Vauxhall Corsa was
I had
mine.
a Peugeot 106 in blue, 3 doors, 1 litre engine. Um,
That's pretty cool. Yes, yeah, I had to say my Vauxhall Corsa, yeah, it's similar, like a dark bluey purple, 3 doors, 1 litre.
yeah, you have to push it to get it to go anywhere. But back then, I could fill the entire tank for like £22. It was 2000
Mm.
and passed my test in 2006. Yeah,
Yeah, I was think probably similar. 2006,
yeah. So
2007. No, what? No, I wasn't.
Yeah,
2008. About 2008, 2007-ish. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's just interesting, isn't it? It's similar kind of time frame. And I had friends whose parents were like, "Oh, here's a car. You passed your test. Here you go." And I was
Yes.
like, "What? What do you mean you're being bought cars? Like, what's going on here?"
Yeah.
But actually, now I look back on it, it was a good lesson in working towards stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree with that because I think that I got some help, but the kind of ongoing stuff, I had to basically, if I didn't have a job, I couldn't drive,
Yeah,
and therefore I had to get a job to go and be able to put the car on the road and, as you say, fuel it. So I think it is a really good lesson, and and similar to you, I had friends who were just you're like learn to drive. They actually got cars bought for them when they were like 17 before they passed the test, and they're nice cars, and it was all free and clear and paid for. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see them now. But
yeah, it would. I wonder whether they looked after them as well. I spent ages kind of learning about my car, doing basic maintenance. Used to wash it every week, and kind of I really looked after it because I put the car was £1,600, insurance 1,100. That's probably the most amount of money I ever spent kind of in a few days. Back kind of 18 or so, and I used to work in a pub at night, do a shift on a Wednesday to be able to afford my fuel for the week to get to my regular job, which is in the carpet factory, um, which I'd work kind of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And it taught me a lot about kind of, you've got this much coming in, you've got to spend this. This is already spent in fuel. You've got to get to work. And I lived about a 15-mile drive from it, so I used the car every day. And then my dad was like, if you push it hard, you rag it a lot, it's not going to last.
mm,
And it turns out he was right.
yeah, yeah, it sounds like I was very similar to you on the upkeep and make it last. Um, but yeah, but I think there's definitely, I think for me, when I read that, I think definitely not putting money aside to your own detriment. But I think having seen and grown up, and I think in quite a balanced environment when it came to money, then I think that it's fine to gift and give money early, but as long as there's lessons in it. Um,
Yeah. And I think,
because for me, it's not been so spoiled. Because I think it was Warren Buffett said when he was talking about how do you bring up your children or something around giving them money when they're younger. He said, I want to give them enough that they still have to do something, but not enough that they don't have to do anything.
yeah,
And it was that thing of you're gonna still have to, have to go out and do something. But he said it meant that they could do whatever they wanted. And I think he's like one of his kids is a professional cellist or something, or a music in a musical
oh, wow, that's
orchestra.
unique.
So they were very different, but because that was their passion and it got the money, it allowed them to do that, but they couldn't kind of just put their feet up and do nothing. So I think there's something around that. Um,
Yeah, no, I would agree. I would agree. It's interesting, like, I mean, we're 38 ish. Like, when we get to, wait, no, we're 37, right? When we get to kind of that age of retirement ourselves, do we do similar? Do we change our kind of narrative? Because I've always thought for any future children my wife and I have, I would like to be helpful financially to them. So my initial thought, and I think I've mentioned it here before, is to say whatever you save for a house deposit, I'll double and give back to you. So I'm planning
yeah,
financially for that. I'll have to cap it probably. I don't want them coming to me with 200 grand and be like, you know, when you said, oh, that's like, yeah, okay, different
yeah,
story. But just I think I would have benefited a lot from that at kind of early 20s, mid 20s. So it's something I would like to, if I can, to be able to pass something on like that. Yeah, it's interesting in terms of gifting too much. And I think your point about fully understanding the rules in terms of what will be taxable and what's not. So you can give, I think, £3,000 per year per child, so long as it's not to your own detriment, without any kind of inheritance tax burden, which works out to be what £250 a month.
yes. That's right. There's also a rule, I think, where you can give unlimited gifts from your surplus income, if as long as you can prove that it's not to your detriment.
Sure.
And then those gifts are you've got 7 years for those to. So if you die within 7 years, then a portion of it, depending on when you did die,
Mhm.
it still becomes part of your estate that gets taxable. And so there's like a sliding scale of what's
Yeah.
it. So if people say if you're 95 and go, right, I'm now going to start gifting away, you've probably got a load of money that you're still going to get taxed on. You're almost better doing it in your 60s and
Mm.
70s and getting it out of your estate to help reduce that um,
Yeah.
inheritance tax bill. And the same for housing and sorting that out because a lot of people's wealth is tied up in their house. And we're kind of on the point five around leaving inheritance tax planning a bit late. But near where we live was one of our neighbours. They've got real issue. Their mum died. All the money's in the house. The house isn't selling. There's a huge inheritance tax bill to pay. You need to sell the house to get the inheritance tax paid. And without having paid the inheritance tax, you don't get permission to really like sell the house. So it's almost this like doom loop of you need to settle the bill. So you have to like borrow money to then pay
Yeah.
the inheritance tax bill to then get probate, which then allows you to like properly like steal the house. So it's been a real nightmare for them.
That's sticky, isn't it?
And it's going to be really common. So when people are like downsize and get rid of your like live in a nice like live in a smaller house, don't have all your money tied up in your house. From an inheritance tax planning standpoint, it makes a lot of sense because you don't want as much in your property like tied up where that's the only big illiquid thing that is kind of where all your money's held. So it's I think it's something it's really complex is inheritance taxes, and I think if people are listening, don't take my word for it, but yeah, speak to a professional and get your affairs in order. But I think I can definitely see why, having seen some examples close to home, why they say get it sorted and do it quickly. I say not quickly, but do it early enough.
Yeah, do it early so you have A, can relax a bit about it, and B, understand or get someone else who does understand it to guide you for sure. So I know we've talked about you don't need financial advice technically to as you're growing, accumulating, but it comes into its own in the retirement tax planning efficiency stage. They can almost
Yes.
save you more than they charge. And
Yes.
there's a thing a little bit here about the book by Bill Perkins, Die with Zero, and giving things with like a warm hand and seeing the benefits
Hmm.
while you're alive. There's a little bit there about kind of balancing that. Um, yeah, I mean, if I am to gift some money for a house to my child or a contribution, I'd kind of want to see them buy it. I want to go and have dinner with them in their house and kind of help them with decorating or the garden or something,
Yeah.
rather than be like so old that I'm like, oh, I'd love to help you, but I'm 90 or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's so true, and I think it's sort of really fair because there's something. I guess there's a balance. You don't want to give so much that you're to your own detriment, but I think by being seeing it being helpful to people, there's a load of benefit in that. Much better than giving it to putting it all in a will and it being a surprise for everybody, and you don't get to see any of the benefit of people using it. So yeah, I completely
yeah,
agree with you on that.
you miss out on the joy, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we move to point two?
Yeah, so point two is on delaying big spending. So this is a lot of the regrets in the article centered around traveling and kind of saving up big trips for or like buying like your dream car kind of thing for when you're too old to really enjoy it. And I think you see it really often. And I see my parents are a good example, and probably a lot of listeners' parents. You obviously you finish uni, you get your job, you work for however many years, 40 years, and then like, you finally retire, you get your lump sum, and it's like, well, I'm going to go travel. But I think the type of travel you want and the places you want to see, it's becomes you're not as fit and as healthy as you were, or you don't have the stamina that you once did. And big trips therefore become quite intimidating and not as and so people put them off indefinitely and never go. Others, you could see them that you get an unexpected illness and that takes over your life. And I think when you get over 70, like health insurance becomes almost um, it's become so expensive. It's actually really hard to go anywhere because your obviously your insurance costs more than a holiday. And so I think for me, this one is probably quite common. It wasn't unexpected, but I think it's kind of with the reasons why we're pursuing FI and doing this is to help do those experiences earlier and do the big spending sooner. But yeah, I'd be keen to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, firstly, on the holiday insurance thing, like my dad's 71 now. He does have some, like a lung condition, and he and his wife, earlier this year, February, went to Thailand. Um, the travel insurance for him alone was nearly as much as the flight.
Yeah.
It was astronomical, like nearly four figures worth.
Oh wow.
And you hope that he doesn't need it, and it's wasted money. And he didn't need it, and he's back home safe, and it's fine. But he was like, actually, I really want to go. The longer I leave it, the more expensive it will be. And I was like, well, okay.
Yeah.
Do it. It's going to make no material difference to your life. And they had a great time, and he really enjoyed it. And then you don't think about the money at that point. And there's something here about, like, I'll do this when, or I'll do this later, or when I hit a certain net worth figure, or when I've done, I don't know, when I've paid off my mortgage, or when I earn this amount of money, or when I'm 50, we'll do that. And I think it's okay to plan into the future, but make sure you're not constantly pushing that away, because there's a balance here of, like, you don't know if you can do it when you're 50. A holiday at 50 is going to look very different to a holiday at 30. Like 30, you might be climbing mountains, eating street food, kayaking down a river or something. At 50, it's probably a 5-star hotel with air conditioning, and we don't touch street food because it might make us upset, like gastrically.
Yeah.
It's a very different experience.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that sentence that you said around, I'll do it when, or I'll do that later, or I definitely want to do it, or one day I will. Like you hear that so many times when you talk to people about things, and sometimes you just got to pull the trigger and do it, and there's never like a perfect time. But I think it's that thing of, as you said, like when you're 60, when you were dreaming about going to these places when you might have been 30, it's very different experience and very different thing, and that's fine. But I think if as long as people recognize that I would like to go and see X place, but I'm probably going to be sat on a cruise ship, but I'll do a day trip into the city and I'll be back for my steak and chips for dinner on a cruise ship. Then you and my parents they did a cruise and went to like Cambodia. Is it Cambodia, Thailand, Laos or something? But they stayed on the cruise ship, and then both of them are very fussy eaters. And so they had like a day trip, like maybe literally hours in like Bangkok or wherever they stayed, and then we're back on the boat again. So it's like, yes, technically speaking, you have been to that place, but you've not experienced it and lived in it for a matter of weeks or however to really get the feel. Um, and it's like the same way I've been in Athens airport because my flight was diverted, but I then stayed in Athens airport to go out. So if strictly speaking, I've gone to Athens, but I haven't gone to Athens. So I think that, yeah, it's very different. And I just think, I don't know if people fully put the thought into what it's going to be like to be able to do it. And I guess the other thing is people have got children. And so you can't take kids out of school and stuff during the peak life. But
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I mean, you shouldn't, or you could, and pay the fines, etc. There's loads of people actually do that because the fines are cheaper than
hmm
like the holidays half price, and including the fine, it's still less. But I think it's like plan for these things. So, for example, if you want to go to, I don't know, Japan and climb the mountain there, I forgot the name of the Japanese mountain. What's the big mountain in Japan called?
Mount Fuji.
Mount Fuji, right? Thank you.
Yeah.
I just had the word Tamagotchi in my head, not Mount Fuji. But say you want to go there for a bit, a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever. Like plan it and plan for a specific time frame, right, to go and do it. You've got to be physically fit enough to climb the mountain. It's a very long way up. You're not going to be doing that in your 60s. Unlikely. There might be some people that can. You're going to have a much better time. You're kind of in your 20s, 30s, maybe 40s, depending if you're particularly active. And I feel like people let their health slip a bit as they grow older. As the decades go by, they get generally less healthy. So, and I don't want people to regret, like, oh, I wish I'd done this when I was this age, and I wish I'd done that. Because when you get to kind of 60, 50, 70 or so, 5 grand probably is not going to be a huge amount of difference to you. But the memories of climbing Mount Fuji with your wife or your children or whatever, or your friends or something, those will be, I think, worth more in terms of like memory dividends, to bring a Bill Perkins quote back in,
Yeah.
than the extra money you have. And I don't want to regret stuff like that. And my wife's actually very good at steering me in the right direction in terms of let's do the thing, go to the place. Whereas my brain's like, if we take that money and compound it, what will it look like when I'm 60?
Yeah.
But actually, she says to me, life is for now as
Yeah.
well.
And I think that's really wise words. Because you can optimize to a certain point, but the point isn't to just optimize everything for the sake of optimizing everything. And and I mentioned to my wife as well about that memory dividend. I think that's really nice. And a lot of my spending, or our spending as a family, as a household, is all on, I guess, experience and memory dividend paying things. And so, yeah, for me, it's really important. And as you said, 5 grand or 10, 20 grand when you're 65, 75, 80 probably is not going to make a jot of difference. Certainly in like the five path people.
Yeah, yeah, and that, like, the pathway we talk about a lot, right? We've done 94 episodes on the 5 paths so far, with a little bit of deviating in between. But you start, like, when you learn about money properly and investing, compound interest, like the global kind of stock markets, etc. And when you get to retirement, like normally that's a long time. It takes time to build and compound these levels of wealth and money, unless you win the lottery, sell a business overnight, etc. But you'll have put years into crafting, creating a sellable business. The bit between starting and finishing, that's like the majority of your life. And you don't want to get to the other end and finally get to this experience that you are financially independent, to be like, oh, but what's it cost to get from A to B? I really don't want to regret that. I want to look back and think, actually, you celebrated the milestones, you went to the place, you did the thing, you climbed the mountain. So I think about it quite a lot, actually.
Yeah, and I'm similar. And I think for me, like that kind of coast fi point, like that tip over point which I probably got to, and me and my wife are at probably about 6 months ago now. That for me was like the big thing where I really felt a bit of relief and being able I felt less pressure, like purely self-imposed pressure, but there's less of a focus on having to save every penny, and it was a bit more like, well, I guess I'm still going to invest and still focus on it, but it allows you to then do those other things a bit more guilt-free. Like I said, I've got my sabbatical coming up, and I've got like 16 days or 17 days left at work, and then that's 3 months out. Like optimizing that my finances is not good when you take 3 months out without getting paid. But the memory dividends I'm going to get from that will more than outweigh the salary I will lose and my pension contributions I will lose because of it. So it's similar. It's one thing that's really on my mind as well, to not just be doing it for the sake of doing it, but oh, cool, I've got X amount of money now. Oh, right, well, I'm 65 and I've missed out on a lot of life.
Yeah, yeah. You just don't want to do. I mean, just to mitigate some of that, you could, which I'm sure you've thought of, is just make some manual payments into your SIP for the 3 months, even a token amount. But you'd have planned it, knowing you'd have planned it to the kind of the penny, and it won't make a huge jot of difference to you. So, what are your thoughts then on the third one, staying in the wrong job for security?
Yeah, I'm. It's a tricky one, this, because I think the the thing I'm worried about, I can completely get why you do it, why people do it, and I would, in some cases, say I'm doing it now. Um, when you've got a consistent paycheck and it's decent, and you might not love the work you do, or love your colleagues, or love the environment, but if the money's decent and is allowing you to live the life that you want or achieve your goals, I think there's a lot to be said for doing it. And I think there's got to be a point where you've, if you do it to the point of, say, like saving up money and then getting, say, financially independent, to then be able to allow you to shift, and you see that kind of secure job as got a purpose of the job itself is doing a job for you financially, then I think it's fine to stay in that role. I think where people, I guess, there's always that risk as you get to 60. I wanted to do this thing all my life, but if fundamentally, say you train as a scientist or an engineer, and your passion is painting landscapes, unfortunately, we live in a society where if you're an engineer, building rocket ships is probably more profitable for you than painting landscapes. And therefore, if you were to have a career painting landscapes, you'd be in a kind of your position and your financial situation wouldn't be that good. And I think you'd end up with a lot of stress from something very unsecure. So I think for me, it's a balance, and it's probably something to you're able to transition from something secure and solid to build a base to then give you that springboard to go off into the kind of the more passion job, for want of a better word. Yeah, that's kind of my immediate thoughts.
No, a passion things that it's the bit I was thinking of, and it's setting your foundations that are solid, so you do have something to fall back on. Sometimes that just takes longer, and then it kind of gets in the way of it. But again, we're back to balance, aren't we? You could do 3 days of one thing, 2 days of another,
Yeah.
um, and just level kind of your week that way, I suppose. But I think there's a huge element here of like a bias around like you've stayed in that particular job. You could have moved somewhere different. It could have been brilliant. It could have been terrible. You don't know because you didn't do the thing. You don't have that
Mm.
objective kind of data or the experience to compare. And I think it's always when we think about regret and the human brain, we only know what we know, and we only know how we felt during those experiences of, say, staying in a job for, I don't know, 40 years or so. Not that that exists for our generations or below anymore, but we always, you know the term like looking through rose tinted glasses back at something.
Yes.
It's an element of that where your brain thinks about the stressful kind of nature of the thing you're doing, and then it's for a little bit of its own relief. It's like, well, Alex, if you'd done this other thing, it could have been easier.
Yes.
Maybe, but you don't actually know. And it's just your brain's way of reducing again the cortisol level and balancing kind of those brain seesaws. But without doing the thing, going to the place, changing the job, meeting some colleagues or whatever, you've got nothing to anchor it to. You just have the, oh, maybe it would have been different. And it's the thing of, if you say to yourself, well, I'm going to buy this particular thing, I'll be happy when I buy whatever that is. When it arrives, your brain's like, oh, you've got it. Oh, yeah. Actually, that's not what I really needed. I just wanted the dopamine serotonin thing that drives the purchase and gives you the motivation initially, but it doesn't give you a long lasting like semblance of happiness or joy. Maybe we'll touch more on that at on another episode about kind of the dopamine serotonin uh, calmness versus motivation thing in our brains. But I always think that when we compare, oh, I should have done this, or I did that, but I wish I wanted to do this, you kind of look at it through a different lens because the pressure is different. So the job you do now in accountancy has its own share of pressures. You get paid for that, and you're happy with that kind of remuneration, and it works for your current life. You could be an artist painting portraits in I don't know, a cabin in Wales where it rains all the time, and part of one of your corners of your roof leaks. you might be really happy with your day job, but you have different pressures and different problems. So I don't think I don't think the grass is particularly any greener. I think the problems you face are different.
Yeah, and I agree. Like me and my wife always say, you can have money stress or you can have work stress. Oh no, yeah, and
Yeah,
it's kind of like, well, if you've got a highly stressful job, more than likely you get paid and compensated for it, so therefore your money problems go away, but well, they get reduced. But then on the other side, if you were to say do that passion project, you're probably not going to be on the most money. And yes, there's the exception where you get massive and sell out stadiums and you do your passion and you know, earn millions and millions of pounds, but that definitely is not the rule. And an example just on that with we used to rent out our room to lodgers, and one of the lodgers we had, he was a professional golfer, and so he spent his time going around like playing golf tournaments, and then he would also do golf lessons for people. And we just thought, oh, that's so cool. And like you just travel around, it must be so nice. You do, you're a golfer, that's amazing. You just play golf all day. And he ended up not enjoying it as much anymore. So a game that he almost fell in love with as a kid and grew up playing and was obviously clearly very talented. Um, but as with most things in sport and in life, in golf, the top, I don't know, 500 golfers say earn incredible livings. The rankings below, and where there's tens of thousands of golfers, don't. And so there was that element. And then because of that, he then had to do the online tutoring and he would go to courses and train people. But it became like what started off as a passion then became a bit more of a job and it was very much work. And so that was quite a good insight into like, oh, man, like how cool like you play sport for a living. But it was very much like it was work. Um, and so yeah, similar things. It then just opens up new pressures and it can sometimes take the shine off your passion.
yeah, and again, it's us. Like you guys looking at this guy, and you're like, I play golf all day, and you're like, oh, great, that sounds wonderful. Because golf to us is a leisure activity. I don't play particularly very often. I haven't swung a club for about a decade, but we're like, oh, it's a leisure thing. You just do leisurable things all day, but actually, to him, it's work.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally different. And it's yeah, perspectives for sure. Like the top 0.01% of sportsmen earn millions of
Yeah.
pounds, like the LeBron James of basketball. There are loads of college level people and below that earn barely enough to buy shoes.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah,
it's
I was listening to a podcast it was about football and it was very like similar. So if you're in, say, the Premier League or the Championship, I mean Premier League's different planet of money. Championship you still get really well paid. But as you start going below the leagues, they were like, yeah, that's kind of like mortgage only territory. So it's like you're still basically gonna have to get a mortgage to buy a house, in those levels. Um, which I thought was quite, oh yeah, wow, of course you do. But when you're on £10 million a year in the Premier League,
yeah,
you,
different story,
yeah,
isn't it?
no,
Um,
no mortgage needed. Yeah, and I think that's always something to remember with kind of these passion areas and sports and stuff. There is such a tiny, tiny like tail at the end where of like the statistical distribution where people are stupendously successful, but the vast majority it just isn't it doesn't play out that way.
Yeah, and I think just a last note, kind of before we move to reasonable or ridiculous, because we're 44 minutes in, the amount of effort it takes to be like the professional footballer or the professional golfer or whatever sport, the dedication, the hours a day you put in, and people don't see the 12 hours of practice per day. They see the 90 minutes on the pitch or the round of golf in an afternoon in the
Yeah,
sunshine, and they're like, "Yeah, guy's got it. He's got paid all this money for just that," but they don't see the effort that goes
yeah,
in, kind of all of the other facets that you and I have no idea about. And it's the just unwavering dedication to the sport to get them to that kind of level, which none of us really see. It's kind of below the surface, but it's all necessary to get to that, the one of the 1%.
yes,
Um,
yeah, yeah, absolutely, agree.
yeah, yeah. Okay, I think let's do three today. We'll do the other three next week. Otherwise, this is
Yes,
going to be a 2 hour thing. for us, which I don't have time for, and probably neither do you. So my pitch to you today:
reasonable or ridiculous?
Linked to the kind of 30-degree heat waves we're having, air conditioning in residential houses in England. I have a friend of mine whose husband fits air conditioning. That's his job. He's very busy. And she said it would be roughly kind of £1,500 to £2,000 for the full kind of thing to be fitted for our house. Is it reasonable? Is it ridiculous?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I'm sat here sweating in
Same.
30 on the second tranche of a 30-degree heat wave. And I think if you were to say maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago, is this reasonable or ridiculous? I'd almost just say, no, it's ridiculous. Like don't waste your money. But I think the temperature is definitely changing. The climate has changed or is changing as all the scientists predicted, and it's getting increasingly hot for longer. And there seems to be like these bursts of just just so crazy high temperatures, which are just unbearable. And I think these temperatures are bearable when you're around a swimming pool and you've got a pina colada in your hand. But when you're trying to function and work and operate a normal life, it does become really difficult. So I would say more leaning now towards it's pretty reasonable. If you're going to stay in a house for a long amount of time, having a couple of air conditioning units, I think, would be a really good thing to do because, yeah, it's just it is getting ridiculous and it's getting more common now, these crazy heat waves. And if we do this again in December, we can ask ourselves if we'd still think it's reasonable or ridiculous. But I genuinely think now this is not these are no longer like heat wave type thing. It's just this is just the weather. This is just what happens now.
Becoming the norm, isn't
Is
it,
my
rather
view.
than the exception?
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you can. I mean, she was telling me, my pal whose husband fits these things. He says you can get versions that heat and cool as well, so it's kind of dual usage. But I'm the same. Two years ago or so, I'll be like, no way, waste of time. We don't live in Spain or whatever.
Yeah.
This is England. It rains all the time. But now, after kind of experiencing this, I'm like, yeah. I mean, £1,500 sounds cheap. I'll take it.
Yeah.
You can justify it to yourself. I think any kind of which way. Even for, I mean, sleeping, your body has to cool 2 degrees, so ambient temperature for that really helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I might be talking myself into it, but I agree that the reasonableness of it is changing the hotter it gets for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's just getting a bit mad, and this is the norm now. So I think it's a and people will probably look forward to like when they look to buy a house, probably look for aircon now as well as
Yeah, as
other
important as a
stuff.
driveway.
Yeah, yeah. I want a south-facing garden and air conditioning.
That's it. Yeah, but
Yeah,
you'll
yeah,
see it in property listings everywhere. Top line
yeah.
air conditioning, climate controlled
That's it.
house. Um,
Yes.
yeah. Okay. Let me do a quick summary because you did the intro. So this has been episode 94. We've titled it "Financial Regrets in Life." There are 6 in the article that Alex, the accountant, read. We've covered 3 in sort of quite a lot of depth. They are gifting money, gifting too much money too early, and forgetting a little bit about retirement, delaying big spending until retirement and not doing it earlier, and staying in the wrong job for too long for security reasons, not because you wanted to do it. I've talked about my return on Heartbeats, which is a mostly homegrown dinner with vegetables from our garden. And we both now think that home or residential air conditioning units are becoming more reasonable the more days we have to suffer through the heat. Cool. Alex, thank you for your time this week. Are you about next week for episode 95 and we'll finish this list off?
Yeah, absolutely. But before we finish, I just wanted to give a shout out to Dad on Fire, who sent us a really nice email about the regarding the sabbatical episode, and just say a big thank you for emailing out. And funnily enough, yeah, I am from Wakefield, not far from Wakefield as well. So I actually used to do a job in my Pinderfields Hospital in the canteen, and I worked there from age 16 to 23. So I know that place very well. So we're actually from a similar part part of Yorkshire.
Yeah, well
So
remembered. I forgot. Apologies for that. But yeah, he did send us a lovely email, and we have some tentative plans to bring him on an episode with us. He's obviously
that'd be brilliant.
on the fire path himself, and has actively planned what he calls mini retirements or little sabbaticals into his life. He's got some lovely stories about taking his family to the Netherlands, especially, and probably other places until we can arrange that. So yeah, I appreciate it, my friend. We'll make it happen when our schedules align. But Alex, thank you again, my friend. We'll see you next week for episode 95.
Yeah, getting achingly close to the 100 mark.
None of what we discuss on the show is to be considered financial or health advice, and we recommend you always do your own research or consult an independent financial advisor or a doctor when making your financial or health decisions.